Today's mini lesson is on punctuation in dialogue, and I decided to use parts of a short story that was actually already written in order to teach this skill. This story is called Cut Out Hearts. Rhea timidly placed her pale, white, shaking little hand into her sister Emily's much bigger hand. She fixed her chestnut brown eyes on Emily's loving and gentle blue eyes and tearfully said, "I'm afraid, Emmy. I don't want to go back there. Please, don't make me go." And I have that first quote already written on the board. Notice that the exact words of the speaker are inside quotation marks. Also notice this mark, which is the paragraph mark, and this arrow, which means that every time you start a new paragraph, you need to indent. Now here at the end, because this quote is an exclamation, notice that the exclamation point is inside the quotation marks. If the quote had been a question, the question mark would go inside the quotation marks. Okay. And the next thing that happens in the story is there is a change in speaker. Now, every single time the speaker changes, you have to start a new paragraph. That's why I have the paragraph mark here again, and that's why I have the arrow to remind you to indent every time you start a new paragraph. Now, the new speaker says this. "What's wrong?" Emily asked with a comforting smile on her face. That quote, the exact words of the speaker, is "what's wrong?" And because it is a question, the question mark is inside the quotation marks. Now, I'm going to turn it around and we're continuing on so that we can focus on just a couple more punctuation rules. The speaker has changed again, back to Rhea. And here is the exact quote. Notice the punctuation sign here, that is a paragraph sign, and notice the arrow telling you to indent. "That lady wants me to cut out my heart," Rhea cried. Notice before Rhea cried, okay? The end of the quote is there, and there is a comma inside the quotation mark. Whenever you continue on after your quote with "Rhea cried," or "he said," or "she said," or "John screamed," whatever it may be, if you're not using an exclamation or a question mark, you need to use a comma if you're continuing on, okay? And then the same speaker is here. So notice there's a quote that's happening right after Rhea cried, but because the speaker did not change, I did not have to start a new paragraph. I just continued on. It says, "I'm not doing that." And because it's an exclamation, the exclamation point goes inside the quotation marks. Now finally, we have yet another change in speaker. Now because the speaker has changed, and every time the speaker changes we start a new paragraph, I have my paragraph mark, and I have an arrow to show that I'm indenting. Now, when you're writing your story, please don't put a paragraph mark, and please don't put an arrow for indenting. I'm just reminding you in the mini lesson. Okay, it then goes on to say, Emily worked hard not to laugh, and finally said, notice here, if you're about to start a quote and you're in the middle of a sentence, always put a comma before the quote starts. So that's why the comma is there. Ray, Mrs. Smith wasn't talking about the heart inside your body. End quote. The end of the sentence was there as well, which is why the period is inside the quotation marks. Now when you try to write your own stories, please use this mini lesson as a guide to use proper punctuation. Good luck. Have fun writing.